Hello, dear friends. We don't need to talk too much about the crisis, but about the remedy to overcome it. Opinion piece. End times. Change should not be scary. We live in a strange world. We are in the end times. Jesus said not to be afraid. We face the collapse of everything. David Wilcock wants to predict the future. If you know your destiny, you will be excited about the future. Indieco believes the reset will be in 2023 or 2024. A new era in international trade begins. China's visit to Saudi Arabia will change the world order. Let's start. Journalist and popular author Michael Snyder says in his new book that we are in the end times. Few Christians would disagree. So, where are we and what do we face? Snyder explains, I believe we are living at the end of a timeline. I believe Jesus is coming back soon. Close quotes. Juan José Benítez also believes in the return of the Master. The Bible describes the end times, the time just before Jesus' return, as the most chaotic in all of humankind's history. In fact, Jesus told us that there has never been a time like this before, and there will never be a time like this again. Things could get so bad at the end that it would be the worst time in all of humankind's history. I also believe it would be the best time for God's people. There is no other time in humankind's history that I would rather be alive than right now. The Creator put you here for a reason. He put you here with a purpose, a destiny, and a mission for you. If you understand that, you will be very excited about the future, even if things are chaotic and wild. Jesus said that just before this return, there would be wars and rumors of war like in Ukraine. Snyder also mentions war in China, war between North and South Korea, and war between Iran and Israel. Snyder also mentions the famines spoken in the Bible that also point to the end times. He explains that there have been droughts in different areas in the past. We are seeing tremendous droughts affecting agricultural production throughout the northern hemisphere. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, the breadbasket of the world, we've seen agricultural products restricted because of the war with Russia. We have this perfect storm for agricultural production. Meanwhile, we have an energy crisis that is worse than any of us have ever seen. The price of natural gas has gone crazy because of this war between Russia and NATO. Now, already 2/3 of all fertilizer production in Europe has been shut down because of the price of natural gas, and that's going to affect agricultural production next year. People have to realize that if we couldn't use any fertilizer, we wouldn't be able to feed half of the world. On the financial front, Snyder believes that the Fed will continue to raise rates and that the housing market will sink further along with the economy. Snyder predicts, I don't think the so-called prime pivot is near. I think they are going to keep raising rates for now, and that's really bad news for real estate and for finance, because it's already crashing the economy right now. We are seeing a massive slowdown. I think the Fed is determined to slow inflation, but ultimately they would be forced to pivot sometime in 2023. Snyder also says, basically, we are facing the collapse of everything. we are already seeing mass extinctions around the world. One study showed that 32,000 species have declined by 69% in the last 50 years. Natural disasters, wars and rumors of war, pestilence, and all the things we have been talking about will combine and create this perfect storm. In closing, Snyder says, Jesus warned us about all these things in advance so that we would not be afraid. We can look forward with courage. Yes, bad things will happen, but it is when times are darkest that the best heroes are needed. In the years ahead, you have the opportunity to be a light and make a difference. If you wanted to live in biblical times, you are going to have that chance. You are going to have the opportunity to do a great deal of good in this world if you understand what's going on. And if you prepare yourself in advance, if you take advantage of this, rise up and be the person God created you to be. Close quotes. Definition. Last Judgment, Universal Judgment, or Judgment Day are expressions that define a religious view of the end of humankind or end of times, one that conceives of this as a judgment that will decide the final fate of everyone for all eternity. The belief in a collective judgment dictated at the end of time was first recorded in Zoroastrianism, prefiguring the various later eschatologies of Christianity, late Judaism, and Islam. Gonzalo de Berceo composed the signs that will appear before the final judgment. In quotes, on the last day, as the prophet says, the herald angel will sound the trumpet. The dead shall hear it, each in his stall. They shall run to judgment, each with his own baggage. According to the doctrine of the Roman Church, the final judgment would take place at the return of the glorious Christ, the resurrection of all dead, of the just and of sinners, would precede the last judgment. This would be the hour when all who are in the tombs shall hear this voice, and those who have done good shall rise to life, and those who have done evil shall rise to condemnation. Then Christ would come in his glory, accompanied by all his angels. All nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left, and this shall go away into everlasting punishment, and the righteous into eternal life. Abuse of trust. Abuse of trust by Peter B. Mayer. In reality, both the Holy See and the Vatican have been instrumental in turning all national governments on earth into national corporations under the same misleading name, but written in capital letters, for the purposes of operating under the jurisdiction of the international law of the See and the Roman Curia, which makes this act a legal fiction. It is now specifically the responsibility of the Holy See and Pope Francis to undo this breach of trust and mismanagement of corporate nations, because they are primarily responsible for this creation. They claim that we, the living beings, are responsible for paying their debts because they turned every individual into a corporation under the same name written in capital letters. All these illegally formed corporations should be liquidated, with no harmful effects on millions of innocent people who were misinformed by the corporations created under their own name written in capital letters. Many people have no idea what happened to their name and assets, and therefore never had or took the opportunity to act against it. Jesus was one of the few messengers sent to people to educate us about what and who we really are. And if we wanted to develop a true spirit, we first had to understand this information and exorcise the negativity of the planet. But this figure was manipulated to convey different information. Reset News. David Wilcock announces the prophecies of Archangel Michael, project that predicts dramatic events. Juan O'Savin says that in this game of an eye for an eye, they are going to play every card they have. The only one they won't play this time is the alien card, but they do have the option of faking an alien invasion. They are saving that for bigger global operations. We are in the biggest battle in the history of the planet, and it is about which illusion is going to win. God wins every time. Rafael Palacios has just spoken personally to India Echo, and he is of the opinion that the financial restart or reset would happen in the 23rd or 24th year, but wouldn't be affected by the political wrangling in the US. He says that in March 2020, the quantum financial system was activated in the secondary banking system to take control of the opaque accounts, and they gave a 2-year window to see if anyone would claim these larger $1 million accounts and justify the legitimate origin of the money, so that if no one claimed them, they would be seized and the money would be used for redemption. That deadline expired on March 2022, and the money is being used to send the first 3 tiers. According to India Echo, no one has any liquidity, but only screenshots of the mirror accounts, but the money is being moved. India Echo believes that this could be activated in 2023 or 2024, although there could be something before the end of this year. For the gold standard to arrive in the US, he believes that the Zimbabwe dollar, which is based on the mineral resources of this African country, has to be revalued. The Iraqi dinar will follow suit with China. In other words, China will revalue its currency in exchange for Iraqi oil. The European Union seeks to avoid a major political crisis between France and Italy. Mozambique starts exporting liquefied natural gas. A new era in world trade begins. The structure of world trade is undergoing profound changes, and its new configuration is increasingly visible, with companies moving their factories out of China and relocating them to other countries. As the US drives the process, reports the British newspaper The Economist. FTX was reportedly run by a gang of kids in the Bahamas. Sources close to the company claim that these people lived together in a luxury penthouse and have or used to have romantic relationships with each other. BRICS expansion. BRICS is expanding. 12 new countries have plans to join BRICS. Most notably, these lists include the world's largest crude oil exporter, Saudi Arabia. China's visit to Saudi Arabia will change the world order, writes Xinfu. President Xi Jinping will visit Saudi Arabia, and this meeting could change the balance of power in the world. This could be the start of an economic alliance that could boost economic growth in Asia and drain power from the West. Wall Street celebrates the latest financial disasters. We live in a strange world. We have just witnessed one of the most horrific financial disasters in years, and economic activity is slowing dramatically all around us, but Wall Street is celebrating. In fact, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose more than 1,200 points on Tuesday. We will weep for joy. What the average citizen will soon face, by Steve Biko. Can you imagine what the perished citizen will soon face in 10 days of disclosure, and they don't know as much as we lightworkers do. They haven't had years to cry for society and for themselves. For the ordinary citizen, I believe it will be 10 days of paradigm-shattering videos, of devastating revelations, of profoundly shocking truths, that most cherished beliefs will vanish. 10 days of a world going down in flames. 10 days of taking everything we can without screaming or going crazy to escape. This is the truth that we, the truth seekers, have sought. To handle the situation, most societies try to soften the blow by using the device of honest witnesses to the truth. We may have to climb a mountain of pain and cross a river of tears before we reach the promised land. Closing of Cycles by Chiron. Many of us have a problem with the fact that the world's events related to the liberation of humankind are too slow and too cautious. At present, several great cycles are ending simultaneously, including the civilizational one for the whole earth, and this would be the reason for a very careful approach to how we end it with our powers, both in personal life and for large social units. Personally, I am not at all surprised that the whole thing is so protracted and cautious. It is not just about our present, but about the whole great cycle of civilization, which may last several millennia. So let us be patient with what is being plotted now. It is very important for the whole future world, and it is not appropriate to be provoked by the black cats, who know very well his rule of cycle complexion. Let us be patient, and in the meantime, in our personal lives, let us try to end all that we have lived through with peace and justice. That is our only role in all this. When the time comes, and all legal remedies have been exhausted, then only the army can come to the well, regardless of the consequences. Everyone needs to have enough time to be informed, but if they haven't even done that, and that's a problem of negligence. Reflections. Get ready for the chaos that is coming by Saratoga Ocean. What I notice most at the moment is an immense sense of fragmentation. They are doing this by assigning us multiple strange and conflicting identities. This is what would ultimately lead to chaos. So the question is, why are we, humankind, so disoriented that we tend to absorb these projected identities and make them our own? It is always the media that lets us know that these identities exist. The controllers create some strange identities and then encourage us to adopt them and gather in various cults to adhere to their slogans and assigned beliefs. The world is in a very confused and secretive space at the moment. In the background, a horrible sausage making is going on. Because there is such a rush, the potential for serious mistakes is greatly increased. Meanwhile, there is great tension between nations that is constantly escalating on the world stage. There is also the problem of a ruined economy that is like a massive chain reaction, an industrial explosion. Get into resonance with God, and that is what you get. You can shine like the sun in your own solar system, like a microcosm. If you go to God in a sincere way and tell him that you want to attend his school of higher learning, he will accept you as a student. The skirmishes that occur down here resemble a chaotic water ballet, where performers are pulled in all directions by invisible waves that make it seem as if one is fighting ghosts. Heaven is not disturbed in the least by what happens here, nor is the sun. Heaven helps and heals when given the chance. if you don't want it, it goes elsewhere. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.